What's up, everybody? Let's Talk Jets Radio. Hope you guys are all doing well. Apologies for no show tonight. We'll be back live tomorrow, 8:30 on Blog Talk. 929-477-2651 is the number. If you guys want to call in and chat with us, feel free. This is going to be part 3 on rebuilding the Jets, diving into the dreaded quarterback debate. I promise it will not be overly biased towards Sam. I'll save most of the opinion stuff towards the end. But this is essentially going to look at the options that are on the table for Joe Douglas. And short of something crazy like Dak Prescott becoming available via free agency, you essentially have 3 options. You could trade for your quarterback, you could draft your quarterback, or you could stick with Sam. So we'll dive into the risk and reward with each, and starting with what I think is option A. Assuming that the price is right, I don't know any Jet fan that wouldn't want to trade for Deshaun Watson. You're getting an obvious top 5 quarterback, talented as hell, young as hell. So a long-term rebuild then can still happen. He's not overly expensive either. When you look at the contract this year, he's almost making the same thing as Sam Darnold. The next 3 years, Houston is on the hook for his signing bonus. So the contract shouldn't be much of an issue. He also brings instant credibility with you around the league. You become an attractive destination for free agents. So just having the quarterback in place, knowing that once you do get it right, you probably have the best chance to win. It's hard not to like the idea of Deshaun Watson becoming a Jet. But you do have to look at some of the risks that are involved. Yes, he has had multiple ACL tears, although he's bounced back from it. In 4 years or in 3 years, let's say, if the Jets haven't built a winner around him, or let's just say he doesn't like playing for Woody Johnson, whatever, would he pull this stunt again? Ask for a trade, demand a trade, threaten to sit out? Who knows? But I think the biggest thing with Deshaun comes down to, one, what's his preference? Is he willing to put the Jets above Miami or Carolina and teams like that? And the bigger question, how far is Joe Douglas willing to go to make this happen? And personally, I just don't think he's going to go above and beyond. I think he'll pursue it. I think he'll make an offer. I think he'll be aggressive. But to the extent of, let's say 4 first-round picks and a Quinnen Williams, which is, the talk that most people are bringing up, I don't think he's going to go that far to do it. Because, again, you look at Watson last year, he put up incredible numbers, yet the team was still 4-12. And you look around the AFC right now, if you get Deshaun Watson, but you don't have all those assets around him, and it's not to say that you can't build through the mid to late rounds or you can't find pieces in free agency, but you're giving up a lot to get him, and you're not necessarily bringing him into a situation with a lot of building blocks. So if you get him, are you better than what the Chiefs have around Mahomes? Are you better than what the Bills have around Josh Allen? Not to mention, you got other teams that are on the rise, like the Browns, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Titans, even some of the other young quarterbacks now that are entering the AFC, Trevor Lawrence, Burrow, Herbert. Like, you got a lot of competition, so it's not just about the quarterback. But if Douglas is able to get it right with those mid to late round picks, which I think is a big risk in addition to free agency, if he does get it right around Deshaun Watson, that could be your best chance to win, if we're being honest. So there's obvious risk and reward there. So I get why Jet fans are tempted by it. I'm tempted by it. I just don't think Joe Douglas is going to go above and beyond. I think he does have a plan that involves building through the draft. So then you go to the next option, which is drafting a quarterback, and the reward is pretty simple in the sense that you still have plenty of draft picks to build around whoever you take. You have another first-round pick this year. You have 2 first-round picks next year. All your other picks, plus whatever you get from trading Sam Darnold. So you'd have plenty of assets there. Plus you're resetting the quarterback clock as far as paying your quarterback. You'd have this guy under contract on his rookie contract for the next 5 years. So you're still players in free agency. And also picking second, that might be your best chance to get the guy. Joe Douglas, you would have his guy here. It would be a fresh start, nothing to unteach from Gase. Don't have to worry about, trading up next year. In theory, if Saleh's a good coach and Douglas is able to do some good things in free agency in the draft, you're probably not going to be picking, top 5 again, at least let's hope. So this might be your best chance to get the guy if you are attracted to, whether it's Wilson or Fields, whoever it is. If you view one of them as a top 10 guy, this may be your best chance to get him. Okay? So then you go to the risk, and I'll make a case that this might have the biggest risk associated with it. Not that the reward couldn't be great, not that you can't have a winner, but the risk of Sam Darnold going somewhere else and flourishing, or even worse, the guy that you take is just, an average guy or even a bust. Joe Douglas will not recover from that. So, you're going to be tied to this guy for 3 to 4 years. This is Douglas's guy. He won't get another opportunity to take a quarterback. So if he's ready to go all in for the quarterback, he better be damn sure that he has the guy. That this is the guy, there's no questions. He's going to fit your system. You're going to be able to build around him. You cannot have any questions. You cannot have any doubts. Also, you're not just looking at, Zach Wilson or Justin Fields versus Sam Darnold. You have to weigh in, I think, the cost of whatever you're giving up with that number 2 pick. whether it's sticking with the number 2 pick and taking a legitimate number 1 receiver or another anchor on the offensive line, a guy like Sewell, or even more importantly, what I think is a very realistic possibility, trading down. If you're not taking a quarterback, I would be shocked if from now until draft day that Wilson or Fields, one of these guys, don't emerge on somebody's draft board. One of them is going to shoot up where a team is just willing to give up a haul, I think, for one of them. I don't know who it is, probably Zach Wilson, because it seems like he's getting a lot of the love right now. But somebody is going to be willing to give up a haul to move up. So possibly trading back once, maybe even twice. You're looking at least an extra first-round pick, maybe multiple first-round picks, multiple seconds. You could stock up so many draft picks in addition to what you already got from Jamal Adams, where it's like you could still get your quarterback. If it's not Sam, if it is Sam, you have all those assets in place. I mean, you have to weigh what Fields or Wilson could be versus what you could get for that pick. So let's just say like the roles are reversed. If a team's calling you and saying, hey, we'll give you 2 first-round picks and a second to move up, from, let's say, I don't know, a team like the Lions or the Panthers, somebody still in the top 10, I love the idea of trading back to number 4 with the Falcons as well. Or even if you trade back with them at 4 and then trade back again, if Wilson or Fields is still there, somebody moves up to 2, takes Wilson, and then Fields is still there at 4, you could trade back again. I think there's plenty of options where you could potentially be looking at 4 first-round picks next year, which would be insane. So do you have Wilson or Fields that high where, if like the roles are reversed, would you be willing to trade 3 first-round picks to get them? Are they viewed that favorably that you would trade that much to go get them? So I think that's the way you have to look at it. Not, are they worth the number 2 overall pick? Are you willing to sacrifice that much in draft capital compared to what Sam Darnold is or what next year's draft class is? That's a legitimate question that you got to ask. And then we go to everybody's favorite topic, Sam Darnold. So the reward, I think, is pretty obvious also, that you have the most amount of draft pick compensation possible. Like I just said, you could trade down multiple times and stack a ridiculous roster around him. You don't even have to pick up his 5th-year option if you don't want to. You can move on after this year, or you can pick it up for a relative bargain. It's about $18 million, hoping he becomes the guy. But in free agency, you can still invest heavily this year. You can push the quarterback decision into the future. You can bring in a new quarterback if Sam is a bust. But if he does turn out, if he is the guy, having all those extra draft picks, all your money in free agency as well. I keep saying, like, there's a difference between paying Deshaun and giving up all those draft picks versus Sam emerging and then you pay him and you still have all those draft picks on their rookie contracts to build around him. That's what I think the biggest difference is. So I think there's a lot of reward in sticking with Sam. I think that he can prosper, in a different system with a guy like LaFleur, with more talent around him, a better O-line, better receivers. It's not to say that, the lack of talent and the coaching was the problem for every one of his faults. He's clearly had some things that he's got to improve upon, but he's also 23 years old. He's shown you that he can do it in flashes. Can he now be more consistent with a better cast around him? That's what you have to ask yourself. Now, the risk is that Sam Darnold sucks and they pass up their franchise guy. Yes, they would still have the ammo to move up and get the guy next year, but do you love next year's class more so than this year? And again, where would you be picking? Depending on if you trade down, where you trade down, you'll have Seattle's first-round pick, your own first-round pick, and then you would probably have another first-round pick from somebody if you traded down. So are any of those picks going to be in the top 10? If not, you're probably unloading most of that draft capital to go get your quarterback, or you're pushing the decision into 2023 or 2024. So, or you're taking a chance on somebody maybe that you're not even sure on next year. So I think there's obvious risk and reward in all the scenarios. But for me, I'm not going to be mad at whatever happens here, because clearly you can build a winner around Deshaun Watson. Having the best quarterback of the bunch with, still a lot of opportunities to sign free agents, having the instant credibility factor, the best quarterback, and again, still keeping in mind that it can be a long-term rebuild because he's so young. Even after the first 2 years, if you haven't put that foundation in place, well, you still have your top quarterback at age 27, and then you would still have all your draft picks going forward after that. So it can still be a long-term rebuild with Deshaun, and then once you get it right, you would think the shit would take off. With a rookie, I get it, same thing. You'd have more flexibility in free agency. you would have almost as much draft compensation as with Sam. Assuming that you're able to get a late first or an early second for Darnold after trading him, the draft picks that you'd have over the next 2 years wouldn't be much different as if you stuck with Sam. It's just a matter of how favorably you view these quarterbacks. Are any of them top 10 guys? If not, you don't just take a quarterback for the sake of taking one. So, the same way that people say, oh, like I just said, picking second might be your best chance to get that quarterback. Picking second might also be your best chance to stockpile an incredible amount of draft picks on top of what you already got for Jamal Adams and have a legitimate foundation built for the next 10 years. That might be your best chance to do it. And so that, trading back, that coincides with, sticking with Sam Darnold. And for me, that's the least risky option because you're only tied to him for another year. So if he doesn't work out, if he's a complete bust still, chances are you're probably picking somewhat high if he's that terrible. But even if you're just not sold on him as a franchise guy at the end of the year, you're not tied to him at all unless you pick up the fifth-year option. So you'd have plenty of options and flexibility to move on. And even better, if you're taking a quarterback next year or the year after, you're bringing that quarterback into a much better environment with more talent around him, a coach that's already had a year to kind of instill his system. So I think that, again, there's a lot of risk, a lot of reward with each option. But to say that you can't build a winner around Sam or a draft pick or Deshaun Watson is crazy, which is why I'm just kind of taking everything in stride. I'm recognizing that, as long as Joe Douglas is a legitimate GM and Saleh's a legit coach, any of these options can work out. So appreciate you guys watching. Have a good night. Talk to you soon.